We have some handouts today, we have snacks over there. Your name tag, because I am name learning challenged. If you brought your book, great, and if not, it's not going to be in the book. And then hopefully you chatted with your neighbor about how recording went in your classroom. And I hope that I'm just not sure that we made that clear as many times as I watched the session, that everybody should be doing this, not just the new teachers. The mentors should be doing this also. So we can, because we can all learn. And I just as a little funny thing, my husband is the police chief of Ailey, and when I told him, I told him, yeah, just give your phone to a student and they can record you. He's like, I swear to God, if anybody loses their phone because they gave it to a student. So of course his brain goes right there, right? So hopefully everybody still has their phone intact, right? Very good.
My alarms.
Just talk at your table for a minute about how that went, and then at your table come up with one little tidbit you want to share with the group. So just spend a few minutes chatting about it. One comment from each table. We'll start here with our two little tables. What's something that you all noticed about your videotapes, or just an aha?
Well, what I know.
How about somebody at this table?
Okay, we also put that positive about what we know.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know
Any
it's a
comment
positive
that you
and
have?
a negative, but that it's always room for improvement.
Of course.
What I was telling Ms. Contribute that I noticed that I do monitor all the time, that it constantly working in every table, like maybe a little too much or something. Maybe a little too much.
I don't know if there can be too much.
I think you have to have it, but too much is good.
Yes,
Yeah,
right. If
Maybe
no
do
one
it, I
does
mean, spend a little more time in each table instead of
Oh, I see.
monitoring and, because
I see,
it's
yes.
just going.
So maybe
going.
not so surface looking, a little
Yeah,
deeper.
Maybe deeper with, maybe especially.
But I think that's exactly the kind of thing that in the moment you can't notice, because your brain is paying attention to all those things. So without
Yeah.
that, like that third person in the room helping you see that, you might not ever notice that. You don't notice those minutes.
And a lot of my video was kind of like, I think if I put the camera in a place that is a better place, because I think I put it too close to the box. So most of the time it's a box with flowers. And you can just barely hear you can hear my voice and the kids' voice, but it was a good class because they were not loud. So but yeah, maybe have a different place.
And that's what chapter 2 is kind of about, those technical pieces.
Yeah. I didn't get to see myself in action like that the whole time. So it was a few times that I catch myself.
But how do you know that unless you do it?
Right.
Nice. Thank you. Do you want to?
Yes, I saw 3 different things. Clamping my hands, fixing my shirt. And then those are 2 things. And then the other thing is that I need to, like just like you Ms. Martinez says, or maybe similar to what she said, I need the communication needs to be it needs to flow a little bit better. I need to take my breath, relax, speak, deliver.
Oh, nice.
Because it's too fast, I think maybe I want to get the information out too fast, and sometimes
Right, because your brain's going fast.
So,
Trying to think the next thing. Wow. Amazing observations, and I feel like each one of them is something that you would not have noticed if you didn't have that actual, what is reality in your classroom? Nice, very nice, thank you. And we're gonna watch a teacher monitoring the classroom, so it'll be interesting when you compare yourself to that. I don't know if you looked at this or not, we sent it to you, we thought it was pretty fun, that we had our meeting on the 10th, and on the 11th, the superintendent sends out an email, or an email letter to everybody about what it means to be a good teammate. He used 3 of the exact words that you all put on yours, and along with loyal, flexible, and active participant on your team. So I feel like team player talks about that, honest talks about that.
I thought maybe you had forwarded our circle map to him.
No, I had not. That was a surprise.
This is pretty interesting.
But we did after his email came out and told him how we how we used it and made that connection with him. And he's always happy when he knows that his stuff's getting looked at. I just thought that was a fun piece, and you all nailed it. What makes a good couple. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We had our welcome. We're going to talk about, in chapter 1, they talked about how there's autonomy in teaching, but there's also accountability, and how do we fix those two things together. We're going to do a little piece on ratio of interactions. You may have heard something about this in CHAMPS. If you're a new teacher and you went through A-Leaf U, wow, that 4 days of learning was a lot, so you may not remember ever hearing about that. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we're going to do this time. So we've done our welcome. Okay, in the book on pages 8 through 13, it talks about autonomy and accountability. What I want you to do is at your table, I want you just to discuss what are some of the similarities between autonomy and accountability and what are some of the differences. Because we know similarities and differences is the #1 way to help people learn things. So have a little discussion at your table about what is autonomy, what is accountability, how are they different, and how are they alike. One piece in your book. It's on page, it talks about, it's where they question, so they've just talked about autonomy, they've just talked about accountability. They said, how can teachers be autonomous and accountable at the same time? Well, then they define accountability. On page 13, they said at the school level, accountability is a genuine commitment to learning and growth on the part of every educator. A recognition that to have learning students, we need learning teachers, learning coaches, and learning administrators. And they talked about that work of Robert Fritz about 30 years ago that talks about how we need a goal, but we have to understand reality. So the goal is kind of like the accountability part. It's what should be happening in the classroom. And what's reality is the autonomous part. Because we all know that the goal is for the students to understand these standards. But our paths to that may look very different from one classroom to the next. But we all are accountable for that goal. So if you think about it, the video kind of gives us the reality of what's going on. And then knowing our standards, our expectations, that kind of thing, that's the accountability piece. So what I want you to do, think about at your tables now, is come up with some examples of where do you have some autonomy as a teacher here at Alexander, and where are you feel accountable? Where are you held accountable here as a teacher? So I want your group to come up with come up with some examples of each, and then pick one example of each to share. Okay, so where are some examples of autonomy and accountability here at Alexander? Okay, so Randy talked about some ideas. There are some ideas listed in these bullets down here. I want you to just take a minute, look over those bullets, chat with your neighbor about what you heard there with Randy. Here's what we're going to ask you to do. Between now and November 12th, we're going to ask you to videotape about a 20-minute segment of class. And I know you read in the book that they said it's somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes seems to be the sweet spot. So
Ms. Moreno, please call the front office. Ms. Moreno, please call the front office.
we're going to ask you to videotape that 20-minute segment, sit down and watch it, and count the ratio of interactions. So if you can just take this pink sheet out and make a line here, I want you to write Susan at the top and my class at the bottom, because we're going to watch, here's what we're going to watch. We're going to watch Susan interacting with her class, and we're going to count her interactions up here. But then down here, when you watch your own, I want you to record your own interactions down there at the bottom. Okay? So let's watch Susan. It's about 4 minutes. And every time she has an interaction with the student because they're doing something positive, you'll make a mark on the plus side. Every time she has an interaction with the student because they're not doing the right thing, it'll be a negative mark. Okay, so just make your marks and we'll look and see how we did.
Yeah, you did a really great job during teacher-directed instruction, and so now it's time to move in.
Okay, so look over on your neighbor's paper and see how they compare with you. And then we're going to watch them here. Okay, you ready? Let's watch them count and see what they think. This is their count. Oh, and they give a little disclaimer here that, you know, this is what they believe. Some things are open to interpretation. Stop that. Okay, now just turn and talk about what you saw, how your count compared with their count. Just have a brief wrap-up conversation there. Whatever we did before, the fact that now they feel like they're kind of a unit and we work together and we did a good job. She gave us all that. That's exactly right. That would be one for everybody. So do you see it? They didn't differentiate. Was she giving it to everybody? Was she giving it to one individual? It was just, because here's the thing, if I come and talk to her positively, she's going to hear it too. Now, it's not about her, but she knows that I gave this student attention when they were doing something positive. So that just kind of plays in their subconscious that, you know what, you get better attention when you do good things than when you don't do something. And that's what we're going for here. Okay, so our next meeting is November 12th.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So interactions could also be when you just greet the student.
And that's non-contingent, because they're not asking for your attention, but if you say, hey, great to see you today, glad you're here, those are all counting, every single one.
Nonverbal.
Oh, good question. Did you hear what she said? Could it be nonverbal?
Yes, it can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some kids even like that a little better than being like called
When
attention
kids
to
are
them.
working, just go
Yep, that's, you
nonverbal.
know, yeah, you're just teaching them that I pay attention to you when you're doing good stuff. I know it sounds kind of crazy. It sounds like it's too easy, but it really works. Okay, so you're going to record this 20 minutes. You're going to count your interactions, and I want you to choose something on the video that you're really especially proud of, and then I want you to just share that one little piece with your mentor and your protege. So when you are watching that 20 minutes, oh, and there's something, wow, I asked a great question. Or, you know, wow, I really did a good job following up with that. Just choose one little thing that you really like and just share it with your partner. We're not going to ask you to bring it in here and share, but just, I talked to Sarah, and Sarah said that she's happy to let you borrow her iPads from the science lab and bring them into your classroom and do the videotape. And I'm going to send this all to you, so don't worry, you know, if you don't want to write down that's fine. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. After you've watched it once to count the interactions, I want you to watch it again. And I want you to answer these 3 questions, and I want you to bring them with you. So, I want you to watch the whole thing and I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being, what am I doing here? To 10 being, I'm the superstar teacher of the universe. Okay, so somewhere in between there. Now here's what I'm going to guess. Just because I know you all. Nobody's probably going to give themselves a 10 because I feel like everybody here always feels like there's one thing I could do better. So here's what I want you to answer. So you say, I think it's a 7. I'm going to ask you, why wasn't it a 6? And you're going to tell me, well, I did these things that were really good. And that's why I didn't give it a 6. Then I'm going to say, okay, then why not an 8? And you're going to tell me, well, I missed this. So here's an example. I rated my recording a 7 because I saw a few opportunities that I missed to give students positive reinforcement. Why wasn't it a 6? It wasn't a 6 because for the most part everything went as planned and I was able to give several students non-contingent positive reinforcements. Students also followed directions and the channels very well. Why didn't I give it an 8? Well, because I missed several opportunities for that positive reinforcement and now I see a couple of the students were completely confused and I didn't pick that up. So I'm going to ask you to rate yourself. I'm going to ask you to tell me why it was good, why you didn't give yourself a number lower, and then I'm going to tell you what could you have done. I'm going to ask you to tell me what you could have done to make it 1 more. So sound good? Sound good? Thank you for playing along with this. You know, I was kind of hoping you didn't read chapter 2 because we violated the very first rule, which is let people choose whether they want to do this or not.
I wondered if you were gonna change midstream. When I read that, I was like, we haven't ever read the
No, we're not. Here's what we did. What we focused on, since we took choice off the table, what we focus on is making it safe. So that's why we're not saying, post your classroom observations on YouTube. No, we're just saying, share that one moment that you're really proud of with your protege and bring that up. So thank you again for being here.